Or even you should get to work and, have everything ready and be seated for work right at 8.
Yeah. There was an expectation to be there at a certain time. And if you weren't, then you weren't like leadership. You weren't, you weren't doing the right things.
Yeah, because you had to be seen.
You had to be seen. Ugh, who cares?
Yeah, no.
Who cares? I mean, seriously, if the job is getting done, the people are being managed, everything's moving forward, who cares? So, Julie, we're talking about the millennial generation.
Yes.
The greatest generation.
I don't think everybody thinks that, but yes, I agree with you.
I mean, there's a lot of great things about us.
Yes.
There's a lot of great things about our generation. There's a lot to say. I think we both probably have a lot to say about this. So let's define millennials first. So we are the generation that are born between 1981 in 1996. So the youngest is about 28 this year. The oldest is 43. So, which I feel like is kind of because there's a lot of differences that I have than folks that are, 28, 29 years, I feel like. So we cover a lot of years. We're the largest generation in the workforce.
Correct.
Which is crazy to think about. We've experienced as a generation a lot of different things that have shaped us, that, we've learned from, that have molded us, or maybe even created lenses the way we view the world from. So 9/11 was a big thing. Google was founded as a search engine.
Thank God.
Yes, thank goodness for Google. Hurricane Katrina, which was a big thing. It was very, very big. Columbine shooting. Mm-hmm. And the Great Recession. We experienced all of that. And some of us maybe younger than others during that time. So there's a lot of different things that happened. And some of the things that the way that we see the world, I think too, contributes to maybe our jobs, the jobs that we hold, the jobs that we leave, all of those different things.
Yeah. So one of the things I think I remember that what mainly defines us as a generation in the workforce is we are all about efficiency.
Oh, yeah.
And if there isn't a statement that describes me to the T, the thought of something being less efficient because it's the way we've always done it.
Oh, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, or it doesn't need to be fixed, or those things that irk me to no end.
Yeah.
We're about efficiency. And because we grew up with technology, we're, faster, quicker. Hey, there's a faster way to do this or a quicker way to do this. We're all about the efficiency because we're about saving time.
Yeah.
We are work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That is a millennial. We are not going to try to do this the hard way. We want to work smarter and be more efficient. So when they entered the workforce, they were pioneering and pushing the envelope a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember the corporate pushback of millennials entering the workforce. We were like, this is the culture? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I remember the pushback too, because I don't know if it's just me, but I don't think it is. Just asking a lot of questions because I'm wanting to understand, is this the most efficient way? And many times it wasn't. And so there was pushback when you ask questions.
Oh, yeah. Why are you asking that question?
Why should we not ask questions?
Correct. It is I just want I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
And more importantly, why has nobody else asked questions prior to this?
Well, the other thing is why are organizations not sharing the bigger picture?
Yeah.
Why are they not communicating that? Why should I have to ask the questions I'm asking?
Yeah. So you've seen that shift. Now companies are doing that. They have to, because you're not going to get millennial buy-in without it. The other thing too that we experienced is, I think it's on here somewhere, where we talked about all these corporate companies failing.
Oh yeah. Enron.
Tyco.
Enron, WorldCom.
WorldCom.
Yeah.
So we watched on the news people lost their pensions. People lost money and time that they invested because these companies there was no oversight, and people were spending money, and these companies went bankrupt and nobody knew a thing. And people were shredding papers to cover it all up.
Well, it was all like accounting fraudulent activity, right? So there was like no transparency.
Yeah. And so as millennials watch that unfold, you're not going to get my blind trust.
Oh, yeah.
So when you saw millennials enter the workforce, they're going to ask questions. They want to see what's actually happening. And we don't just care about what we do. We care about the other things you do and the other causes you're a part of as well. So there was and that was never a requirement previously.
Yeah.
So what did you see? You see all these corporate America, we're at the food bank. We're serving Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
We're cleaning up the parks. Why did that happen? Because the millennials pushed for this, hey, we need to be about part of something bigger. And there was causes that were important to them. And so if those visions didn't align, they didn't care how much money you paid them. They weren't going to stay.
Yeah.
So it was just an interesting dynamic to see that, but it also is because of the filters of what they saw, which was complete mismanagement in the corporate world.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you said a second ago, blind trusting. You're not just going to blind trust, but I feel like, we talked about baby boomers. It's like the mentality was pay your dues. We're not just going to pay our dues.
No.
I
don't like dues at all. Like, you're going to have to show me
I don't care
something.
about your dues, yeah.
Yeah, like, nobody likes HOA dues. Like, nobody likes any dues. Like, I don't understand. I don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
I am giving you my skill and talent. There are some expectations of the type of environment that I want to work in. And so you saw us pushing that envelope, and you saw there was a lot of strife with boomers and millennials.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, they're wanting this. They're want that. And they're not working hard. And it's not that we're not working hard. We're just doing it twice as fast as you because we're about efficiency.
Yeah. Or we're not sitting down for as many meetings, like putting it in an email or Slack or whatever other communication tool.
Right. We're very collaborative as a culture. Like, if I don't know something, I don't need to go learn it. I'm going to find somebody who knows it and help them to partner with me in finishing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So very collaborative. I don't have this desire to be an expert at everything. I have no desire for that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. I want to know, but if I know there's an expert, I would rather the expert do it. And I can kind of know a little bit of what's going on, but I don't need to know everything.
Right, know enough about it. But yeah, you and I talked about this too as we were building this podcast and discussing like the ins and outs of it. It's like we'd much rather have, the team that we have helping us than having to man the cameras and figure out the audio. It's just like, let the experts be the experts and let's be efficient and collaborate and move on about, the journey.
Well, my time is very valuable to me, and I don't want to be wasting it doing something that's not adding value when I could give that to somebody who knows exactly what they're doing and make it better than what I could make, So I think that's just a cultural thing that we think about.
Yeah.
And Gen Xers are very do-it-yourselfer. They're really do-it-yourselfers. They know how to fix everything. Yeah. I'm not fixing nothing. If something breaks, I'm calling a plumber, calling an electrician. You went to school for this. You have years of experience. You fix it.
Yeah.
I might do something minor.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I can look at something. I don't mind, like, well, I think it's this. We can go replace this part. It's good. But I'm not going to get into the depths of it to look into it. So I don't feel like I really want to do that. But it's about efficiency, because for my time, it's just more efficient for me to call an expert to look at my refrigerator versus me trying to troubleshoot it.
Yeah. One of the things too, I think with our generation in the workplace is like even now, like we're attached to our devices. We have an iPad or we always have a phone with us. And so I think that has changed like the way that we work too, is companies have access to us all the time. So which looked different,
Yeah. So we are the first generation for that. So we have our phones. So now everyone texts us, they Slack us, they Teams us.
All the things.
Yeah. So when we went into the workforce, they had 24/7 access to us. Gen Xers did a great job with work-life balance, because there was a part of that generation that didn't have that access to them. I mean, there was the BlackBerry, the emails and stuff. Like, we remember those. But, like, to us, they'll find you. So our work culture looked different.
Yeah.
we went into the workforce with the expectation like, hey, we're on call 24/7.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of expect that.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. And I don't know that it bothered everybody in the beginning, but we learned the toxicity of that and how unhealthy that was as we got a little bit older. And we're like, hey, no, this is
not okay.
Yeah. Because we were seeing burnout
Yeah.
so quickly. And so for us to draw that line to be like, hey, and we had to learn the ins and outs of corporations because they were not really giving up the secrets of how to get promoted or how to do this or that.
Yeah.
So we kind of pushed the envelope in the front end.
Well, we felt like we had to respond too, which, honestly, that falls on us too, is setting those proper boundaries. Because I remember there were so many times where, I'd be responding to emails to a colleague or a boss, at the dinner table with my kids.
On vacation.
Oh, yeah. I was, many times up at 4 or 5 a.m., emailing because I knew that if I got something in front of a boss at that time frame that I could get a response versus working at a normal hour and sending an email at a normal hour. But it's you're trying to push because so it's on us too. It really is. But like you said, I think as we've grown, or some of us, as you've kind of maneuvered your way through, you've learned how to set some of those healthier boundaries of communication.
Absolutely. And really understanding, take all your PTO, take your sick time, leave on time. Don't be the person that stays late.
Yeah.
Don't be the person that has to come in early all the time. Don't be that person. I think in every company, there's seasons of being super busy and understaffed. And I think it's okay for seasons. There's time frames. There's short time frames that I think it's allocated if you want to be, a team player. Yeah. I just don't think it should be your lifestyle.
Right. And I think that's what happened. Yeah. It happened with me too. I mean, there are seasons where you can clearly see burnout because you're overcommitting yourself and doing too much. And there are seasons of your life where maybe you're growing a family or you're doing another side project or whatever it may look like, where you're overextending yourself because you feel like you have to.
Yeah. Millennials are also very independent and independent and autonomous in the fact that working from home and being able to do the work so the whole 9 to 5 thing is, why does it have to be done from 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Why can't it not be done from this time and this time? Who said business hours are 9 to 5? Just
we
because
ask those questions.
Yeah. We're just because the bank does it doesn't mean we have to do it. Where are we determining this work does not have to be done between 9 to 5? Why don't I just get on later at night?
That's what I did.
Yeah.
You're prepping for the next day. I mean, I remember many, many times, and I'm not the only one, doing presentations and prepping things at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30. That was a normal thing. Put the kids to bed and then, you jump into work. Yeah.
Or even just getting that email from IT, hey, this is down, so the chance of you being able to use it tomorrow is unlikely. And as a facilitator, I'm like, what am I doing with these people for 8 hours? If I don't have access to any of the programs that we have, and just coming up with, okay, how do we get this information across? How do we, it's just, and it's 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and, you do it. I feel like if it's not happening all the time, I was okay with things like that.
Yeah, me too.
But it just, we drew those lines. Very taboo thing. Millennials brought the whole mental health illness thing.
We did, yeah.
Hey, I need a mental health day. Yeah. Because the burnout was so excessive. And then with the 2008 economy, you saw companies a lot more careful. They weren't overhiring. It was a slow ramp up after that recession. Yeah. It was a slow ramp up.
Well, they had to.
So, and it was just, people were overworked. Everywhere you walk, people were just overworked. And it was just not a good place. And so when these boundaries started happening and they started pushing these causes, companies were forced to change.
They had to. Yeah. Yeah, they really had to change. Because, we've talked about this, our generation, especially Gen Z too, we're looking to partner with organizations and companies that actually care, and they get behind certain causes within the community, or whether it's a global thing, things that we're passionate about. And so I think our generation and Gen Z too, is we're looking for companies that we can align our values with.
Absolutely.
And not just, going to work from 8 to 5 and getting a paycheck.
Yeah. And then we also saw people have to go pick up their kids from school. And so I would have people ask me, hey, is it okay if I pick up my kids from school and then I'll jump on and then I'll jump back off because I got to put them to bed. Yeah. And then I'll jump back on it late at night. And it's hey, just get the work done. Like for us, it's not about when you're doing it. It's just about, is it done? You know, and so I think we just look at the work differently, and it kind of caused a disruption in corporate America.
Yeah, I think it did, because I think back to, you know, we already talked about baby boomers, but like the expectation there was like, if you're not there in the office, you're not working.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even you should get to work and, you know, have everything ready and be seated for work right at 8.
Yeah. You know? There was an expectation to be there at a certain time. And if you weren't, then you weren't like leadership. You weren't, you know, you weren't doing the right things.
Yeah. Cause you had to be seen.
You had to be seen. You had to be seen. Ugh, who cares? You know? Who cares? I mean, seriously, if the job is getting done, the people are being managed, everything's moving forward, who cares?
Yeah.
But it was like this perception.
Yeah. Because in that moment, you realize they weren't judging your work.
They weren't. They were not.
Yeah. So millennials are like, wait, what's wrong with my work?
Yeah.
It's not about if I was at Target on my lunch break. Getting a Teams call while you're checking out at Target. But do you have a complaint about the work that I am doing? Because that's the bottom line.
Well, it goes back to the micromanaging thing. It's like micromanage you to a point where you have to be present, but things weren't judged by work, by a work level or productivity level, I think at times, which should not be the case.
Yeah. So Gen Z should be grateful for us. We took a lot of heat for Gen Z. And
we have.
Yeah. And COVID came, and like all the companies, have you noticed when COVID came, all the companies that couldn't send people home to work, everybody was, you know, sent home with a laptop in like less than 2-3 days.
Yeah. I know.
It's how convenient. So crazy. But we didn't have the capacity for that.
All of a sudden it happened.
All of a sudden it happened. Yeah. So some famous people.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
He's a millennial.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the big millennial names out there. There's a lot though. Gymshark owner, Ben Francis, he's a billionaire.
Started that company when he was 19.
Wow. CEO of Airbnb, Brian Chesky. Another name, I don't even know how to pronounce this name.
Okay.
We'll probably just skip over that name. There's a lot of millennials though that, and we talked about this too, that are just really, you know, moving forward, pushing companies forward in a big way.
A lot of innovation.
But I think one thing too, it's like some of them, we don't even know who they are. I mean, obviously Mark Zuckerberg, he's created a big name for himself when he started Facebook and has grown, you know, in so many ways since then, but he was young. But I think there are a lot of millennials out there. They're not even looking to create like a name for themselves. They're just out there to get the work done, and they're being very innovative. They're getting behind passions and things that they, you know, want to develop. And it's not necessarily about the trophies and the big name and the awards. That's not what they're looking for.
Well, they have a personal fulfillment. The other thing too, if you look at millennial millionaires, so millennials did become millionaires at a younger age. A lot more innovation. They're entrepreneurs and innovators. But what we did also see is a lot of women and a lot of international people.
Yeah. So that was the one name I couldn't pronounce. I think it was a Chinese lady, Hu Yan Yang.
Okay.
Chinese woman.
Yeah, billionaire. I think she's
billionaire.
Yeah.
So many international people.
Yeah. So the playing field has changed.
It has.
Yes.
It's really changed.
Yeah. And they were inclusive. The millennial culture was inclusive to all that. So you went to school with them. It's inclusive. So you see that. You see that in the innovation, the opportunities people are getting, because you're seeing a lot more international, minorities, women, a lot more women in the entrepreneurial field, you know, doing the things that people deemed unimportant, mainstream deemed unimportant. And these people have come out and they're like, hey, this is important to people and it's going to be big.
Yeah.
And the market could not dictate and control that, you know, as millennials. So we're like, yeah, that super duper scrubber is important to me. I need one of those. Tired of scrubbing. Yeah. You know, and then you got millionaires. Yeah. You know, so it's interesting to see that, because that looks different than the Gen Xers and the boomers list of successful people. Absolutely. And a lot of millennials don't necessarily want a name at being successful. They just want to do what they love to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel. I'm not, you know, and I think one of the reasons too why we want to discuss this is like, there's so much to learn. Yeah. There's so much to learn about the different generations, but what every generation is passionate about. And I think it all, creating that awareness just helps us understand one another. It helps us communicate better with one another. I mean, just learning about the different generations and the things that each generation has gone through and why we might carry the lenses and the experiences that we do is just important. Yeah. It's important to talk about.
I think it's interesting too, because I was going back to what you were saying, how if they say you're not in the office, you're not working. Yeah. And it's kind of like how my mom like looks at work at home. Like, well, you're home. Like, but Mom, I'm working.
Yeah.
I know, but you're here.
But you're here. Yeah. Why aren't you doing it?
Like, I don't know. I'm like, are you expecting me to like wash dishes and like do laundry? Like, I'm working. Like, I lock myself in my room and I'm working. But in her mind is I didn't get up in the morning, take my lunch and pack it and go to the office. So I'm probably not doing much because she's just hearing a bunch of typing and not much is happening. Yeah. Or she hears a lot of talking. And well, what kind of work are you actually doing?
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah. And so for us, it's like, this is exhausting. I probably would have got, because when I used to go to the office, it was less productive for me because on the way to the restroom or the elevator, I run into somebody. Then I
the water cooler talk. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't have water coolers.
I did.
We had water
in the coffee room.
We
whatever.
had water fountains that people use, fill up their hydro flask in.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking like, oh, it's so unproductive to be here. I'm going to run into everybody. You got to do the socialization thing.
At least for like 30, 45 minutes, especially on a Monday.
Yeah. And then like, well, not only that, then like, world events, things happening. People, and then it's like, I want to be like, I really don't care. I don't want to talk to you, but that's just not kind.
It's not kind.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, you do care about them as a person, but you're trying to get
work done. I'm like, the urgency I have to get the work done. And so then it's like, all right, let's go get coffee. And you're trying to like, so in the afternoon, I'd be like, all right, let's go get coffee. And they're like, no, I got to get all this work done. I was like, this is why I do it in the morning. Get it all done. I'm trying to get the socialization out in the afternoon as I'm walking out the door.
Right. Well, what would frustrate me too, personally, is like you'd have all that catching up to do. And it's like, now I got to take it all home with me. And so that it's like, that's not efficient.
Yeah. It's not. And if I was in the office or had to be in the office for a couple of days, I remember be like, okay, I got to go home tomorrow. Because that's going to be the only way I get anything done. And I would go home and just like lock myself in the room and be able to get all the work done. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there were times for me, I would leave the office. I'd go to a local coffee shop and be so productive because, I mean, I don't know about you, but especially like a cubicle situation, it's challenging. It's a challenging work environment.
Yeah. So are the collaborative work settings. Like you're listening to people talk and.
Yeah. On the phones, you hear everybody's conversations. Like so I don't know. I think organizations need to rethink like the structure for the rooms and things that work best. Yeah. Because I think sometimes they don't. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, just for you to feel better about people coming into the office. And there's some tax reasons, too, why they want you in the office, too.
Sure.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's for productivity. Like, I don't know if it's always the best. But it could be for some people. Some people like their home. It may not be a great place for them to get work done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it makes sense, like, I got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
So what are our communication styles?
So we talked about, you already talked about efficiency. That's like the main thing. When we talk about efficiency, it's to the point, like get to the point. I don't know about you, but I remember times being in meetings, I'm like, okay, like what is the point? What are we talking about here? Can you just give us, a summary of what you're trying to say? Transparency, we tend to take a brisker approach. So, and I know it's personality style too, like it's going to be different for everybody, but sometimes being direct can offend. And so I think we have to be aware of ourselves too on how direct we are in the setting. But we tend to be a bit brisker in our approach with things. We talked about this too. Personal talk is for after the workday. Like, let's be efficient. Let's get our work done. That just goes back to the efficiency piece of it. But, as millennials, we want to use multiple communication channels, digital tools, whether it's Slack, Teams, or texting. I think we were trying to relay messages quickly instead of going to someone's cube or to setting a meeting. So we're trying to do it quickly.
So it's interesting you're saying that because I remember being hired somewhere and I ended up injuring my back or my hip or something like I did. was walking the dog. Something happened.
And you injured your hip walking the dog?
Yeah, like there's a dog that was on the loose, and my dog thought it was running after me, but it wasn't, and he lunged.
Oh, gosh.
Anyways, there was a whole thing. But I remember I couldn't go to work the next day. And I remember texting. I think I texted. I got a call.
You text your boss?
Yeah. So I got a call from like the hiring person, because I was still like it was like a temp to hire type of situation. Okay. So I got a call from them, the temp agency, and they're like, I heard you texted your boss. And I was like, yes. I wanted to give her the details of what happened.
Yeah.
And like send her a shot of my discharge papers from the emergency room, just trying to, hey, this is what's up. And he's like, absolutely not. You need to call and leave a voicemail.
The temp agency told you?
Yeah. They need to call and leave a voicemail. And so I was like...
Why is that any different than texting? I
was like, that's very old-fashioned, but okay. I mean, whatever. I said I apologize. Like, my bad. My bad. So
you still communicated.
So I get to work the next day, and I'm like, hey, so sorry. Like, I probably should have called and left you a voicemail. She goes, don't ever leave me a voicemail. I never check my voicemails. I totally prefer you
Especially
texting.
The office voicemails.
That's what she meant. And that's what he meant. And he's like, don't ever leave me a voicemail. I don't ever check it. She's like, I do if I think it's a client, but please don't. Just text me. It's the quickest way for me to know the information and make any arrangements I need to make.
Did you give that feedback to the temp agency?
No, I didn't.
I would have.
He was a boomer. So I just was like, no.
He wouldn't have listened.
No, I was just
feedback.
Like,
he was
leave a voicemail. Don't know if that's efficient. Only because I wouldn't say the first thing I do in the morning is go in and listen to all my voicemails.
No, nobody does.
So I was like, she might just think I'm missing at that point. Just felt like a text message would have been clearer.
Right.
So I just remember thinking that, and I was like, voicemail? Who leaves voicemail? It's like, who does that? Like, now I'm just even reading my voicemail. I don't even listen to it.
I mean, even years, because it's on your cell phone. Yeah. But like, I remember on my office phone, I remember like there were times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many messages on my desk phone. Like, who checks them?
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, like when you go out of town, you go on vacation.
Yeah.
And my boss always be like, Taryn, don't forget to set your out of office voice. I'm like, because nobody thinks of it. Nobody uses it.
Yeah.
But customers would call into that office line. But see, my email signature was always my direct, because like, I don't know, it just blew my mind that people would use the voicemail as much as they would. That's just funny.
Yeah. No, it was interesting. I remember thinking, oh, like, that's interesting. I thought we'd were far along in the 2000s that we...
Not that boomer.
Yeah, apparently not.
Not that temp agency.
He told me like it was completely inappropriate. Like, that was not the way to do that. And I said, well, communication is communication.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to go through the voicemail. Like, it can go through the text message, especially since the first thing she did was give me her cell phone number, Julie. Text me if you need anything. Like, that was her way of communication. Like, it was given to me, my welcome packet.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, you need to call and leave a voicemail.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. But it's just interesting. So millennials forced a lot of change. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And they had to, it was forced. And we had to fight for it.
Yeah.
We fought for that culture. Gen Z is walking into a lot better culture than it was when we walked in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. One other thing, too, with communication in the workplace, which I have made a note of, is that we don't recognize hierarchy.
Yeah, that's true.
You said, I think you said this on another episode, like, yeah, if I'm walking in the elevator with my CEO, like, we're going to have a conversation. Like, I don't.
Yeah, he's going to be like, and I'm not saying we have to have a conversation about work.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be, I've actually done this before. I was in the women's restroom, and she was high up.
Uh-huh.
Her hair was like not moving. And I was like, I need you to tell me what your hairspray is. It's like, what is that? Your hair never moves. It always looks good. And she's like, oh yeah, I totally, here. You can text here. And she's showing me on her phone, and it's just not there.
Yeah.
We don't feel that I don't think I need to go to my direct supervisor to get something done. Mm-hmm. If I'm having to pass you someone, but hey, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Or, but the thing is, leadership has made themselves more available too.
They have.
So I feel like they're open
some.
Some.
Yeah.
A lot of the companies are like, please email with any suggestions you may have, or anything like that. So I feel like that was nobody pushed back on that. And I found people to be very friendly and wanting to do that. The only people that probably be upset with that are the people that want you to go through them. You know,
that's like power. You know, that's like a power
it's
stroke.
narcissistic.
Yeah, it is narcissistic. It's control. It's control. It's not fostering like the right kind of work environment at all. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah, and the thing about narcissism though is they come in all the generations. You know?
Yeah, it's true.
They come in all the generations.
They
so
do.
it's very likely that you can have somebody you're working with or for that doesn't fall in any of these categories because they're just narcissistic.
Yeah.
So they're very micromanaging, wanting to control everything.
True.
So you'll see that too. So it's not a very one size fits all because personalities play a big role in that.
I'm just looking here. Another thing is, you know, we are big collaborators. So we're looking to kind of help give everybody a seat at the table and contribute. I think that's like a good quality that we see about millennials is you're genuinely interested what everybody has to say, especially if it's like a team project or something like that. Whereas, you know, you're not having to go through that channel. Like we want everybody to contribute.
Well, I think we grew up that way. So if you think back to elementary, middle school, high school, the way you grew up, you probably, depending on where you are, and you may not, had a more diverse group of people you were around. Even when you went to college, you might have seen a more diverse group of people.
Yeah.
You assimilated to that. And
Well, you and I really did too. I mean,
of course.
Because you and I've traveled and lived abroad and things. So I think the way that we adapt might even be the exception, I think, compared to some too.
Well, my mind always works this way. Like if there is and I think it's interesting in America, we talk about minorities. But my thing is, if there's a group of people out there and we haven't tapped into them, we're losing money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever that group of people is. And that means we're missing a good chunk of money making because I remember being young. This is just an example. And you had like 6 foundation shades. Okay?
I don't know where this is going.
There was like 4 ivories. No, it was ivory beige.
We need a makeup sponsor or something.
And then it was like tan. 1 tan.
They were all called tan. It was 1 tan. Yeah. You're right.
And we all had to be the same tan. And some of us looked like orange. You know? And it's kind of like that. They missed the opportunity to tap in. It wasn't like there was less people populated here.
So
we were
funny.
all here, which is only our only option. So
That's
it's
so
like
funny. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. So companies, and here's the thing, they're doing it now.
Yeah.
Right? Like Fenty's like amazing shades, like through all the shades. But here's the thing. What were these companies doing previously? You missed out.
Yeah.
Because you know why? We were all here 15 years ago too.
Right.
And we all needed makeup.
Yeah.
So if your company is missing out on a group of people, and we need to find out how we can relate to those people because your company's probably missing out on a big chunk of revenue that you could be making.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I think millennials, we're aware of that. We're aware of who we went to school with, who we live next to.
Yeah.
And bringing them to the table and be like, hey, this is our perspective. Like, what's yours? Is there different? Is there something we're missing? Is there a way we're viewing this?
We're asking the questions.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're asking the questions.
Yeah.
So
I think we're trying to create a space for everybody, and we're asking the questions that hadn't been asked before.
yes.
So the outcome looks different.
Absolutely.
And for the record too, the shades of the makeup, white girl here, ivory didn't fit me and neither did tan. So I was somewhere in the middle.
I just was like, and I remember thinking, are white people this many colors? Because they had a lot of shades.
Yeah. And there was like one brown.
Yeah, there was like one brown and like one dark, a little bit darker. And I was just like,
why do I only get one shade?
yeah. And so it's, but what I'm saying is they missed out.
Yeah.
They missed out. And it's not like we weren't here. It's just like they didn't have somebody on their leadership and in their place, in the places that needed people to be.
Right.
To be like, hey, you don't see me.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we're seeing a lot of women in leadership. We're seeing a lot of multicultural people being promoted and moving because people are moving with their skills. And you're seeing that. And because we're putting people in those places, those people are being seen.
Yeah. I think as millennials, we've really forced a lot of that change because we've asked the questions, we've pushed things. You said earlier, pioneer. I think that's a really good term. Like you've kind of had to push. You've helped force some of the change and efficiencies, whether it be with communication tools or just strategies or bringing others to the table and making sure that everyone, does have a place. And I think a lot of that too, technology has driven a lot of that change that's had to be forced too. But it's been needed. It's necessary. I mean, as an organization, you have to adapt to the world around you and what's going on. And when you have the ability to be more efficient as an organization, why would you not? You know?
Social media has always also connected us.
It has.
And it also has exposed corporate culture.
Yes. Which, and they don't like that.
No, they don't.
No, the old mindsets in corporations, they don't like that. They don't like what's being exposed. And for the record, there is so much like great content out there on TikTok and Instagram that you and I have found where there are things that are being exposed in a humorous way, but it's so true and it needs to be talked about, and culture needs to continue to change and evolve.
Well, I think transparency is important.
Yeah.
So as much as you're hiding as a corporate culture, whether it be just transparency and pay, that was a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because in corporate America, like, don't talk about your pay with other people.
Oh, it's never talked about.
Yeah, don't talk about your pay. Well, that's changing. You know, it's very common for someone to ask, like my husband was telling me somebody had left his company, and he was asking him, hey, man, like just curious, how much are they paying you?
Yeah.
Because when we went back to the negotiation tables, we were very fully aware of how to negotiate. And so they're underselling people in hopes that they never find out.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I think a lot of companies, and you'll see these with job listings that are posted all sorts of places, they'll actually give you a range. And so you can go in based on, you know, your experience and what you want to negotiate for. But, you know, a lot of that is they're going to give you a range because I think millennials and Gen Z too, they're looking for that level of transparency. Like what is the range for this job? Because they're not going to waste their time applying for it if it's just, you know, they have no idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so companies and job listing, you know, companies that are out there, they're having to put that out there. They're having to be more transparent about it.
Yeah. I mean, before we were like just lucky to get the job.
Yeah. And that's not the case anymore.
Correct.
It's just not. It's changed so much.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because hopefully, but I feel like we value our time. We value where we want to spend our time and where we don't want to spend our time. And so the more that companies are transparent about things like that and work culture and all those things, it's like that's part of what we're looking for as a generation.
Yeah.
Is the transparency.
Yeah. And I think that's why you see a lot of millennials being entrepreneurs. A lot of them have said, no, hey, I don't want to do the big business thing. And so we've seen a lot of entrepreneurs and doing their own thing. And I think that's going to be a trend we see with Gen Z. So Gen Z is pretty much, if you're not going to come alongside us, we don't really need you. The thing is, corporate America does need them.
Yeah, they do. They really do. I mean, you know, I feel that every organization really does and can benefit from all generations because we all have something to learn from one another. There's wisdom to be gained. There are technology and things and ideas and strategies, innovative ideas that can all be brought to the table. It's so funny because, you know, I think I was sharing this with you. One of my old colleagues, he has a podcast, and he was interviewing someone who is still in the workforce, and they're in their 90s. And this woman is in sales, and she comes like dressed to the nines for her work day. And she, you know, there are things that were learning from her, just her work ethic and all these things, but she's still thriving at life. And it's like we can benefit from having folks from all generations in the workplace. And I think that's what companies need to do, is understand, like, how do they foster an environment that is productive for everybody, for the organization, but also gives a place for everybody. You know what I mean? No,
absolutely. I think because boomers will work longer than the generation before them, they're not actually outdated. They know what's going on, and they know what's happening, and they know what's growing fast. And so it's like, what can I glean from that? Yeah. You know, and I think as a company, we need to understand that they're still a customer too.
Oh, yeah.
The baby boomer generation is a large generation. Yeah. If you tap out and you're not aware of them and their needs, you've missed it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You've missed it. You know, whatever it may be, whatever innovations or whatever you're coming up with, it's a large population. So to say that we don't need them, that's not true. Yeah. You know, and with millennials, like, it was a lot of change. We did force corporate America to make a lot of changes. And so that was a little, it was very disruptive. And so there was I could tell a lot of tension there with the millennials. There were some like names they were calling us that wasn't what do they call snowflakes?
I don't think, not to my face anyways, I don't think anybody's called me a snowflake.
And I'm just like, a snowflake? They're like delicate. I'm like, we're not really delicate.
No.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
But your perception.
The perception is that we're not working the same.
Yeah.
So we're a snowflake.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you got to be here at 5 a.m. and, drink black coffee and go through the day. And I'm just like.
Sit around the boardroom table.
Yeah. So I think, corporate culture is changing. It's going to have to. It's going to have to adapt.
I think it has already. I mean, you see a lot of companies that are changing, but I think there needs to be more and more conversations about adapting.
Sure. And so I think millennials, as they enter, the oldest is 43?
Yeah, 43.
And as you're going to see them enter leadership roles and CEO roles, I'm very curious to see and understand and really pay attention to what types of changes they're going to do versus your GenX CEOs. Because remember, they're still driven by cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I can see companies having more impact than just in their field, but really getting involved in the community, really getting involved with causes.
Shouldn't they be doing that anyways?
Sure.
Shouldn't that be part of, their focus? I mean, that's just, it seems like a no-brainer to us as millennials, but,
But social responsibility is taboo with an older generation.
I just don't understand that.
Yeah. So I think it's not our responsibility. We are insurance company or automotive company. Like it shouldn't be our responsibility. But you could be employing thousands of people in that community.
Right.
So it's not just pouring back into your community, it's pouring back into your own people.
Right. It's caring about people. It's being a good neighbor. It's, it's loving people. It's meeting people's needs.
Yeah.
It's all of these things. And I think as an organization, you can have the ability to make a big impact with a large group.
Yeah.
Like you really could.
Yeah. But, it comes down to the mighty dollar.
Yeah.
So if it's, and millennials are not driven by money.
Yeah. We're not.
Yeah, not at all. So we'll take a pay cut for more work-life balance. We'll take a pay cut for that. We're just very peaceful with that. So you can't, it's just going to be interesting to see how they're going to pull these CEOs up.
Yeah.
And what these millennials are going to do. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch and see that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that, but I'm a little biased with my avocado toast and all,
I do love avocado toast.
So,
we were the generation that it really came out, right? Avocado toast didn't really become a thing.
I'm not trying to be like.
Did you make avocado toast a thing?
Well, no. What I'm saying is I grew up with avocados. All of a sudden, all these cool things are becoming trending, and I'm like, we've been doing that since we were kids. Or Asian people are like, we've been doing that since we were kids. When your mom forces you to eat an avocado on. So it's not a I think about what's trending now. Ramen. Ramen's trending.
All Asian kids eat those, babies.
It's kind of interesting, but it's cool. Social media has done that. It's opened the world up to people.
It has.
And so we know a lot more.
Yeah.
Millennials travel a lot.
We do.
Yeah.
We love the digital nomad culture, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is why a lot of them are leaving the traditional 9-to-5s and doing their own thing or doing some type of remote project of some kind to be able to have that flexibility. And I think that's something that millennials are looking for is flexibility with their jobs, and especially Gen Z too.
I heard an interesting interview Gary Vee did, and he said he thinks in 10 years that there's not going to be a lot of companies.
Really?
So he thinks what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to be working for themselves. They're going to wake up every morning, and I'm paraphrasing, so I could be wrong here.
Yeah.
They're going to wake up every morning, and you're going to be independently working for yourself. And in the morning, you're going to have a list of things that you need to do, jobs that you have, contracts you have. You're going to finish it, and then that's going to be the end of your day. And he sees that because he feels like millennials and Gen Z are going to be like, yeah, we're not drinking the Kool-Aid anymore. We have skills. We can outsource them to anybody we want to for the bettering of everybody. Not just the growth of a mega company.
Right.
So if that shift does happen, that would be interesting to see.
I think that's already taken place, though.
Yeah.
Just not at a large scale yet.
Sure.
But to some extent it is.
Yeah, because every skill is not looked at that great. But he's saying that's what it's going to look like. And he's like, it could be beneficial. In the way that people will have autonomy over their time.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was interesting when he was saying that. I was like, oh, that's an interesting, but imagine everyone being that way. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting as the workplace and corporate cultures continue to change and to adapt as the generations, as they look up the line and down the line with what they want to do as an organization. Because the reality is they have to change. They have to evolve because you've got more and more folks entering the workforce, especially when we talk about Gen Z. Some of the older Gen Zers are well into the workforce. Mm-hmm. And so it forces more change. I think we're going to talk more about Gen Z.
Yeah, we are.
Which that's exciting. I think there's a lot to learn from Gen Z, and there's still a lot to be learned because some of them are still quite younger. But
yeah, that'll be interesting to get into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.